so I'm going to show you how I close the little gap in between your socks using a 2-stitch pickup. I've been doing this a lot lately and I've found that it produces the neatest corners that I've ever done. So I'm going to show you first of all on a plain sock, just a plain stocking stitch sock, and then I will show you on the actual patterned sock because the texture pattern does kind of interfere a little bit with the corners, so you just have to pay a little bit more attention when you're doing it on the pattern sock. So I'm going to show you first of all on the plain sock that I've got here. Now I've already picked up the gusset stitches and I'm ready now to just sort out this little corner. So what I'm going to do is I'm picking up 2 stitches rather than the usual one is the kind of norm. So first of all, the first stitch that I'm going to pick up, if you can see, this was the last gusset stitch that I picked up here. What we're going to do is we're going to follow this line down where we've been picking up the stitches, and the first stitch I'm going to pick up is just the next one down here. It's not a slip stitch, but it's just the next stitch as you follow that line down. So that's the first one I'm going to pick up. So it's just right in there. So that's that one. Keep your yarn nice and tight when you're doing this. Now the second stitch, let's move that cable out of the way. Again, we're going to follow that line down again to the next stitch down, and then we're going to go across just one, well, it's half a stitch actually. So we're going to go down 1 stitch and across half a stitch, and we're going to go in right there. Down 1 stitch and then across half a stitch, and we're going to pick up there. And that's the second stitch. So that's our 2 stitches picked up. We would now put a stitch marker on here if you're working magic loop, obviously. Put a stitch mark on here, knit across to the other side, and you do exactly the same on the other side but in the opposite direction. Okay, we're now at the other side. So normally magic loop you'd put a little stitch marker on here. I'm not going to do that, just so that you can see more clearly what I'm doing. This would be your last, if you're looking at your gusset stitches down here, this will be the last gusset stitch that we pick up. On that side you can see that's the last slip stitch. So if we work in reverse, if you just have a look, the next one working this way that we pick up would be this one here, which is the equivalent of the first stitch that we picked up on the other side. And then again, if we go 1 stitch down and then half a stitch across, that's going to be the first point that we pick up the extra stitch on this side. So again, that will be the second stitch that we pick up. If we follow that down 1 stitch and half a stitch across, that's going to be the first point that we pick up on this side. Keep your yarn nice and tight. So that's the first one. And then the second one is the next sort of stitch after your slip stitches on that side. And that's your second stitch. Okay, so you can now just go ahead and carry on picking up your gusset stitches as normal. And then what you must remember to do, as it says in the pattern, is the first round after you've picked up all your gusset stitches is just a plain round. You don't do any decreases on that first round. So what I'll do now is I'll show you on the pattern sock, because it's exactly the same, but you just have to pay a little bit more attention because of the texture pattern in the corners. So I've got the sock here that's at that exact same point. I've picked up all of my slip stitch gusset stitches down the side of the heel flap. The first stitch that we're going to pick up, we just follow that line of where we've picked up that last gusset stitch and we go down a stitch, and it's right there. So that's exactly the same as we do when we're doing the plain sock. So I'll do that one first. And again, keep your yarn nice and snug. So it's that one right there. And there's 2 legs, just like when you were picking up. I just want to make sure I don't split the yarn. There we go. So that's the first one. And then it's exactly the same, but obviously in this we've got this, you've got your slip stitch here, kind of in the way of where we're trying to look. But if you just sort of ignore that and just follow the same principle, we're following that same line down. There you can see underneath the stitch, follow the same line down, so that's the next one, and then half a stitch across is there. So we'll do that same thing again. It's right there. I've kind of got used to where my needle goes in now, but it's sort of one stitch down, half a stitch across, and that's the second one. So again, you do exactly the same on the other side as we did for the plain sock, just paying that a little bit more attention because you've got that slip stitch that'll be on top of your stitches. You just need to sort of look underneath that. So there we go, that's how I pick up. There's 2 extra stitches, and don't forget to work 1 plain round before you start your gusset decreases.